Yeah, nobody saw this coming, to say the least. 432 yards of offense for New Orleans, 190 on the ground. We spent all week, Sam, as a lot of people did, talking about how, okay, they found something with Mike Zimmer in this defense and how Zimmer and Parsons are getting along and meshing. But they could not begin to slow down New Orleans today, and that run defense was just so bad last year, kind of rearing its ugly head again today.
Yeah, and the thing about the Saints is their first 6 drives all resulted in touchdowns. So, you know, it's on the Cowboys offense at that point, right, to have some type of answer if the defense isn't getting any stops, and they were just relentless. And when you're playing behind like the Cowboys were today and you don't have any answers on either side of the ball, it's going to end up really ugly. But to me, that first half, Mike, was so critical. The Saints had 310 yards of offense. They were averaging 11.9 yards per play.
You know, and Micah Parsons, we're going to hear from here in just a moment, but one of the first things he talked about was how poorly the Cowboys tackled today. And that's obviously, you know, a basic part of football, maybe the most fundamental part of defensive football that isn't talked about all that often. It's just assumed that in an NFL caliber football game that guys are going to do a good job in that regard, but too many arm tackle attempts for the Cowboys today. Again, the way that New Orleans was able to run the ball so effectively with Kamara, and, you know, they made Derek Carr look like a Hall of Famer today. You look back, and Carr many years ago had a big game like this statistically when he was at the Raiders against the Cowboys as well. Different cast of characters by and large, but man, I was just stunned, as you said, to see the first 6 possessions result in touchdowns for New Orleans.
And the Saints were 4 of 5 from the red zone, inside the red zone today, too. They were just playing lights out. And, you know, it has Cowboys fans obviously in an uproar because of what they saw a week ago. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it felt very deja vu today in reference to a game that they played the last time in this building.
Well, we'll get more into the defense and some of the struggles the offense had, but just a couple of big picture things. We were talking about this in the office, and you might have seen this on social media, somebody mentioning that, you know, everybody said nothing's going to matter during the regular season. All that's going to matter is the postseason. Yeah. But suddenly when they lose a game like this, it matters a lot, right?
Things went up in flames with this fan base. All of y'all care, and you know it. So just admit it. You were really disappointed with what you saw on the field today.
And you should be.
And you should be, because it was embarrassing. It was. I mean, it reminded all of us of the last time they played inside AT&T Stadium, which was against Green Bay.
And, you know, McCarthy got a little bit snippy there at the news conference. It was a frustrating day for him, and we'll talk about his offense in a minute here. But, again, it was the defense that really was the letdown today based on what we saw in the opening game. Just comparatively speaking, Zimmer's unit really did not play well in any phase today, that's for sure. But it does ultimately go to coaching, and not just the defensive coordinator. It ultimately goes to the head coach. And this is one of the great cliches that coaches hate to hear, the fact that their team didn't look like they were ready to play. But this team didn't look like it was ready to play today. And when you're in McCarthy's position and that seat is hot, and it's only going to get hotter when they struggle, you can't afford to lose many games like this.
Yeah. Even Dak's comments there when he said, you know, it's you guys that maybe talked us up a little bit too much. Well, we're going based on what we saw week to week. You know, if it were the reverse and then we were talking a lot of negative and they came out and had a great game, he'd be saying the opposite. So, yeah, these are the storylines that are going to be following this team. Dak just got paid. This storyline of can he get this team to the promised land, we're going to continue to hear about it.
So from a defensive standpoint, again, they didn't do many things right. Run defense was terrible, gave up too many big plays. But, you know, it is possible for an offense to respond and kind of go point, counterpoint with a team like this and win a high-scoring football game. But this offense just didn't have that capability today. I really thought, Sam, this would be the week, unlike last week where they ended up settling for too many field goals, where they would convert those into touchdowns. But I was totally wrong on that. Just one TD produced, and, you know, Brandon Aubrey was the big hero offensively, and that's just not going to get it done.
You can't expect Brandon Aubrey, as great as he is and as consistent as he is, to carry this team on the offensive end. McCarthy said it very simply in his post-game press conference that we need to score more touchdowns. There are no excuses, but they were 0 for 3 in the red zone. through 2 games now, Dak has 2 touchdown passes. And the reason why we're so surprised is because in recent memory, going back to last year, they've played so well at home. It was good to see CeeDee Lamb get his first touchdown of the season. And, you know, if you think that Jake Ferguson not playing this game, it wouldn't have mattered, maybe so because of how badly the defense played, but he is a difference maker. He was the second leading receiver behind CD a year ago. So to say that it wouldn't have mattered, well, maybe it would have a little bit. Maybe they could have had a momentum swing. So not having him playing today, I still think that matters.
Yeah, you mentioned the home success in the regular season. They'd won 16 straight at home. They acted like this was a playoff game the way that they played today and struggled at home. And this run game, you know, a lot of people worried about it, and I think it turns out for good reason. Through the first 2 weeks, you know, 68 yards on the ground today. I think Dowdle with 30 yards he was the leading scorer. They just don't have anybody they can rely upon consistently to run the football. And you need some of that to make your passing game effective as well.
Yeah, you need to have some balance on the offensive end because then it does put more pressure on Dak, on his guys. And if you listen to a lot of the network shows after this game, if there was one glaring thing or common theme that all of them had to say about this offense, it was that their concern was about the run game or lack thereof of what we've seen now through 2 weeks.
And it was interesting off the top, McCarthy didn't go with Zeke for the first couple of series. You'd see Turpin and Deuce Vaughn, you know, in sets together. You know, the smallest running back or, you know, slot receiver combo, whatever the setup happened to be, combination in NFL history. So I think McCarthy's searching for some answers in the run game as well. And I don't know if they exist with the guys currently on the roster.
Yeah, and again, it's easy to overreact a little bit to this performance, but I do think it's justified in a sense because their schedule, when you look at the beginning part of it, it doesn't get any easier. They host Baltimore next Sunday. That's going to be a tough game for them. And if you don't win that, now you're looking at 1-2 on the season, which isn't a good place to be in.
Now, I remember looking at the schedule before the season even started and thinking even if they played fairly well, they could be 3-3 at the bye and still rebound after that pretty well and end up with a decent record. But yeah, right now, as you said, a frustrated Baltimore team that's struggling a little bit as well comes into Jerry World. It's 3:25 start next Sunday. They still have to play Detroit before the bye, so it doesn't get any easier. And now they come in and try to deal with the always challenging Lamar. That's for sure. That's coming up next week at AT&T Stadium. They try to bounce back in that one. That's a 3:25 start here on Fox 4.